which we notice and approve of. In one context, it would be completely inappropriate now in this kind of context, even though it's the exact same thing. It's our perception of that act that makes all the difference in the world, and it's perceived differently in different contexts. Now, fear is our perception of something that might harm us. And that's a normal, healthy kind of thing to have. I mean, we want children to have a fear of running into the streets. It's probably a good thing that we have a little fear when a rattlesnake comes up to us, right? That's self-preservation. That's a good kind of fear. But there's other kinds of fear that paralyze us, that gets in the way of us being all that we could be. If we operate out of too much fear, then there are lots of friends that we're not ever going to make because we're afraid to converse with them. There's a raise we might not get at work because we're afraid to ask. And the kind of fear that I want to mention today is the kind of fear that the apostles had in the first reading. Thank God for Barnabas, because the apostles were all afraid of him, of Paul, or Saul, as he was still at that time. Remember the story of Saul was a great persecutor of Christians in the early day, a devout Jew who thought to know, love, and serve God meant killing these new horrible people that called themselves Christians. And in defending his faith, he thought he was doing God's goodwill until he got knocked off his horse one day, and Jesus appeared to him and asked him, "Why do you persecute me?" And Paul had that great conversion experience. And, well, Saul at the time, who became Paul, the great apostle Paul, that never would have happened if the apostles would have stayed in fear of him as someone who was just going to harm them. Had Barnabas not said, "Well, I understand the fear here, and he hasn't been too nice to us so far," but he really did change. He really did have a conversion experience, and the apostles obviously didn't quite believe that. And it took Barnabas throwing away his fear of even the reaction of the apostles and said, "I don't care, I know this is the right thing to do," and he dragged Saul over to the apostles, and I can imagine the look on their faces when he walked in the door. But in the end, it turned out to be a great thing, and had Barnabas not overcome his fear, and then the apostles overcome their fear, this great apostle of the church who became Paul the apostle, we would have been deprived of the church's first great missionary, the great author of so many books of the New Testament, such a great and important servant of God. So today, when God asks us to prune away things that get in the way, let's think this week maybe of some fears that get in the way. Not just fears that hurt us socially or financially, but fears that keep us from serving God. How about that fear we sometimes have of demonstrating our faith in a public place like a restaurant by making the sign of the cross and praying before we eat, or being afraid to do that in front of others we know? I mean, I've had that fear too. I recently had a wedding where before I met the couple, the bride called me and said, "I got to warn you, my fiancé is a devout atheist." I mean, he's not just a non-believer. He's an adamant there is no God kind of atheist. And he's only, going through this wedding stuff out of love for me. And I was afraid that this guy was going to be a problem, and then I'd have to dance and walk on eggshells around him to even plan his wedding. And I actually started to do that, but I did reach a point where I said, I want to respect what you believe, but you did